welcome to this edition of Coffee Talk. I'm Shakira Millette, and here we have the City of Coral Gables Government Affairs Manager, Naomi Lavi Garcia. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We're here to talk about the 2018 draft of legislative priorities, correct?
That's right.
Would you be able to tell me a little bit more about them?
Sure. So every year the City Commission establishes the legislative priorities for the city, and that really guides us in Tallahassee during session. It helps us to know which bills we need to support or oppose or monitor closely. So it's really a year-to-year exercise. Sometimes we see themes recurring, but really that's how the priorities get set.
And what specific bills are the focus of this year?
Sure. So we have quite a few priorities. I'll just go over a few of them. We always focus on home rule. The preservation of home rule is probably our top priority. And that's just making sure that the city retains its ability to operate as a government, to, serve the residents and pass regulation that's right for our citizens. So a couple of bills we're looking at that have to do with home rule are SB 574 and HB 521. And we're opposed to these bills because if they were to pass, it would preempt the city from being able to regulate tree trimming or removal on private property. And so for a city like Coral Gables that loves its trees, is all about tree mitigation and maintaining its lush canopy, we need to be able to regulate those trees appropriately. It shouldn't be preempted to the state. A couple other bills we're looking at, texting while driving, HB 33 and SB 99, would make texting while driving a primary offense, which is really good for public safety. Basically, if you text while you're driving, you can get a citation. Also, SB 284 and SB 372. If those were to pass, we would have more protection for residents who live in assisted living facilities. Those assisted living facilities would have to have adequate fuel and a backup generator in the event of an emergency. It would also prioritize those facilities for the restoration of power, after the emergency. So we really saw the need for that kind of legislation due to Hurricane Irma.
Of course, and when it comes to the tree trimmings, we saw that we had such a massive amount of debris, and we might really need those kind of legislation. So it's fantastic that we're doing a little bit more to be more prepared for next time.
Right, definitely defending our right to regulate.
And also, tell us a little bit about the Constitution Revision Commission, because we're not really familiar with it since it only comes together once every 20 years. I believe this is the third time, correct?
You're absolutely right. So the Florida Constitution has this really unique process in place where every 20 years a Constitution Revision Commission is assembled, has 37 members, and they consider proposals, and the proposals they can agree on, they basically put right on the ballot for Floridians to decide for themselves. They bypass the legislature completely, so it's a shortcut to amending the Constitution. So we're tracking several proposals coming out of the CRC, and I'll tell you just a little bit about those. Proposal 15 would basically recognize in the Constitution that no person can be deprived of a right due to a cognitive disability. Proposal 61, again, would help protect home rule authority. It would make it harder for the legislature to preempt any kind of home rule power that's guaranteed in the Constitution. Proposal 92 would make it more difficult for the legislature to pass an unfunded state mandate. And Proposal 95, which we're actually opposed to, would preempt the city from regulating commerce, trade, or labor that falls in any way outside of its local boundaries. So that's one that we're not in favor of.
And could you also tell us how the City of Coral Gables is represented in Tallahassee?
Sure. So we are well represented by Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez and Representative Duran in the Florida House. We're also fortunate enough to have several legislators who don't represent Coral Gables but who are sponsoring bills on our behalf. Representative Avila, Representative Perez, and Senator Anita de Flores. We also have a really great lobbying team that is out there, boots on the ground, making sure that our best interests are supported, and I'm proud to be a part of that team. And that's really how we get the job done in Tallahassee.
And what about the funding requests for this year? What is the city focusing on?
Sure, so we have quite a few funding requests. I'll go over just a couple of them. We have a request for $720,000 for stormwater infrastructure improvements Again, really important, especially in light of recent weather events. We also have a request for $80,000 for water quality testing. And one of our big asks is for $1.5 million for a new regional emergency operations center and public safety building.
So as we wrap up this coffee talk, what would you say is your advice to residents who want to be more involved in the legal process, who aren't really aware of everything that goes on behind the scenes?
So my best advice for residents who want to be more involved is to get informed and to educate yourself. Know who your representatives are. Oftentimes the state level reps kind of get lost in the mix. Maybe you know your local and your federal, but you should know who's representing you in Tallahassee as well. It's also important to kind of know what to expect on the ballot when you go to vote. And going to vote is probably also number one on how to be more involved. So I'll give you a quick example. In the November election, you'll see a proposal for another homestead exemption, which seems like a great idea, seems like a tax cut, but really those types of proposals can have unintended consequences. So it's important for the electorate to really be educated and to understand what those consequences are.
And I think we have a video to help viewers understand what you're talking about.
I believe we do. It's a quick video, but it's a good start to kind of getting the information that you need.
Well, let's take a quick look at this video.
Okay.
Should Florida's tax system work for every homeowner or just a few? Picking winners and losers simply isn't fair, and that's the problem with Amendment 1. Amendment 1 isn't a tax cut, it's a tax shift. Most of the benefits go to a handful of homeowners, while most of the burden goes to the rest of us. Here's what Amendment 1's tax shift does. A handful of homeowners pay less. To make up the difference, the rest of us pay more. For most Floridians, Amendment 1 means a bigger share of the tax burden, fewer local services, or higher local property taxes. Basically, Amendment 1 gives these rowers a break, while the rest of us row harder. Amendment 1 doesn't fix Florida's tax scheme. It makes it worse, more complicated, and less fair. Amendment 1. Some win, most lose.
So that was a good video to help educate the viewers on what exactly you're talking about. But is there anything else you wanted to add where the information can be found, for example?
Sure. So that video is actually from the Florida League of Cities website, which has just a tremendous amount of information for anyone interested in, municipal issues and beyond. You can also check out the website for the Florida House of Representatives or the Florida Senate or the CRC, again, Constitution Revision Commission, or the city website. There is just a ton of information online.
Well, thank you so much for being here today for this edition of Coffee Talk. Once again, this is Naomi Lavi Garcia, the Government Affairs Manager of the City of Coral Gables. I'm Shakira Millette, and thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.